afternoon. I'm Ann Hartline, board member and the League of Women Voters of Humboldt County. Welcome.
Hello. We gather here today in this place called Georgie, place to sit and rest, also known as Eureka, on the shore of Ouija, also called Humboldt Bay, part of the ancestral and forever home of the Wiak people, occupied by force and often violence by European descended Americans. Who, meaning thank you to our Wiak neighbors for their lasting stewardship of this beautiful place we all now call home, for their dignity in the face of continuing challenges, and for their willingness to teach each new generation how to live in right relationship with all our earthly relations, mineral, plant, and animal. Ooh.
Thank you. That was Molly Kate, LWV board member. Thank you. All right. So good afternoon, and welcome to this educational forum presented by the Humboldt County Human Rights Commission and the League of Women Voters of Humboldt County. As I mentioned, I'm Ann Hartline, League board member of the League of Women Voters of Humboldt County. The Human Rights Commission has been concerned about free speech and hate speech for several years. This forum has been created to provide information to our community about how we can recognize hate speech and respond to it with civility. The Commission and the League have worked together to find a group of panelists to help us all learn how to have the best conversations possible when we find ourselves disagreeing with someone, or we see or are victims of a form of hate speech. We have chosen these community members for their experiences and their skills in respectful listening and authentic discussion. Our hope is that over these 2 hours, we may find a path forward beyond the differences that so often divide us. A major goal of this event is to demonstrate that respectful listening and diverse opinions and viewpoints can lead to both personal and community enrichment. We hope to bring to life the honorable phrase from the Great Seal of the United States, E pluribus unum, out of many, one. The guidelines for our time together tonight will be, and they're on the board also behind our panelists, listen respectfully, keep an open mind, and be kind. So at this time, I would like to introduce our panelists, starting at the far end. Sharon Blanc. Sharon Blanc has been in Humboldt for 8 years. She is a Black, Jewish woman, mother, and widow. She is an active member of the Eureka National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, the League for Equity and Inclusion at Humboldt County Office of Education, HCOE, and a partner with Blank and Oram Equity Partners. Sharon is not speaking today as a representative of HCOE, or Humboldt County Office of Ed. Next, we have Rabbi Bob Rottenberg. Rabbi Bob Rottenberg has served for close to 50 years as a voice of reason and compassion, working with Jewish communities and the community at large in rural New England and now in Humboldt County. He is a member of Temple Bethel in Eureka and a member of the Anti-Semitism Task Force. Bob is a leader of the True North Organizing Network and a member of the Humboldt Interfaith Fellowship. He advocates for the importance of actually listening to one another rather than trying to convince each other of anything, hence his deep caring about the impacts of speech, be it public or private. Our next panelist is Brenda Perez. Brenda Perez is the Executive Director of Centro del Pueblo, a fervent advocate for indigenous immigrants' rights and a trailblazing leader of the sanctuary law in Humboldt County. Originating from Xauchitl, Mexico, Brenda has been at the forefront of movements defending the rights of indigenous immigrant peoples and spearheading initiatives to establish a safety network for the sanctuary garden targeted by hate crimes since 2022. Her leadership embodies a steadfast commitment to justice and safety for marginalized communities. Our next panelist is Thomas Nicholson Stratton. Thomas Nicholson Stratton is a marketeer, a community organizer with 4 generations of 4-H leadership skills. He holds a bachelor's degree in marketing and associate's degree in business administration from Johnson and Wales University. He has also worked as a dairy industry advisor in branding, marketing, corporate give back, and food systems organizing. Thomas and husband Cody own and operate Foggy Bottoms Boys, the brand extension of their farm, and are the brains behind their new operation, Jersey Scoops, an ice cream shop and storefront for all their goods in Lolita. Betty Quan Chen. Betty Quan Chen was born in southern China. She and her family were persecuted during the Cultural Revolution. Some were killed, others imprisoned, and Betty herself was homeless and brutally tortured from the ages of 7 to around 11. After eventually coming to America as a teen and settling in Eureka with her husband, Betty began to feed the homeless. While she raised 2 sons and served as an aide and worker at Lafayette Elementary School, she quietly befriended and helped those without shelter. She understood their situation. For over 40 years, Betty's empathy and compassion have been expressed in caring for the poor, the homeless, and the ill. The Betty Quan Chen Foundation provides a framework for the work she continues to do every day. And our final presenter is Sean Taketa McLaughlin. Digital ecologist Sean Taketa McLaughlin serves as Executive Director of Access Humboldt, where he advocates for public policies that support universal access to open media. He taught politics of media for years at the University of Hawaii and has published articles, provided expert testimony before legislative and regulatory agencies, and participated in international conferences around the world. Sean's favorite article of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is Article 19. Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. So we ask that you all of you in our audience, I'm so thrilled to see so many community members here. Thank you so much for being here. We ask that you all listen respectfully to every panelist without any indications of agreement or disagreement. We will thank them all with our applause at the end of the forum. Our question response process for tonight will be, each panelist has about 3 minutes to respond to each question. Panelists do not need to take the full time allotted, and they may choose to not respond at all to any particular question, depending on their own desires. If desired, you, members of the audience, are welcome to take notes on the handout you received as you entered the venue. Those are for you to keep. We will take a 10-minute stretch break at approximately 5 p.m. And as a reminder again, we ask that you all listen respectfully to every panelist without any indications of agreement or disagreement. We will thank all of them with our applause at the end of the forum. And finally, before we begin with the questions, now is a good time to check to make sure your cell phone is silenced. I did it right before I started. I gotta remind people about that. So, excuse me. That leads to an embarrassing moment if you don't do that. So, all right. So we will now begin the question portion of our forum. And after question 1, I will reverse the order a little bit just for some variety. So, our first question And we will start, and panelists, please be sure to ask me to repeat the question if you need me to. So our first question, we will begin with Sharon Blank. And the question is, when does free speech become hate speech?
I'm setting a timer for myself because I'm setting a timer for myself because I'm shabby. From my perspective, I think when language is violent, is the difference. I can state my beliefs, I can state what I think, I can share my opinion in a way that isn't violent. And then there's ways of saying what you think and what you believe in ways that are violent to other people. And that's how I see the difference.
Rabbi Robert, your thoughts, please.
I feel similarly about that. I think that it's when something that I say is not only hurtful, but is potentially harmful, physically harmful, as well as emotionally harmful. It's fine to say, to make generalized statements about any group, but when you cross the line to say, and therefore, group A, B, or C should be either eliminated or targeted, anything like that. So when it shifts from a general statement to a specific statement that is really intended to do harm.
Thank you. Brenda Perez, your thoughts, please.
I believe it has to do also with the messenger. A free speech become a hate speech when there is an intention to dehumanize others, when there is this crossing the line to cancel the dignity of each other, when there is a lack of balance in the communication. I think the question is very interesting to me because I also wonder why this is happening so much in so many spheres. And I believe also the conditions where hate speech prosper are such conditions of inequity and, again, dehumanization. So those are some of the factors that I found on why, on when is free speech that is a right, human right, become a hate speech.
Thomas Nichols Stratton, your thoughts, please.
Also setting a timer. Just so everyone's aware, I will be on the side of prevention as much as I can in conversation tonight, answering questions. Because I feel like that's where we need to educate people, is in the prevention method of getting to that point. And to that point, hate speech is when you're activating violence or activating some act of combating someone else, either in a physical form or even in a way for me that feels like not respecting the other opinion, which can always find a seed, a root cause of what that is coming from. So you continue to dive down deeper in having those conversations. Oftentimes you realize there's a limit in what you're engaging. And so that hate speech itself, when you're finding where that limit is, for me, it's when you realize that there is a path forward or there is no path in conversation.
Betty Kwan Chin, your thoughts, please.
Speech, free speech is really something for me. I come to this country. I think when I listen to speech and then the people, the speaker, expect you create what he or she say. And then when they don't get in that way and use a more emotional, get involved, and use a lot of unnecessary violent language. When you get in that way and then be lost, and then get to more cross the boundary, be a peaceful speech and go to hate speech. When you use that kind of language and you lost, everybody listens to you, and the person get more angry and angry, that's turn to hate speech. And I really always advise somebody on my own self, when you read speech, you have find some peace in yourself. When you find peace in yourself, people listen to you. Not necessarily they can agree what you do, but you can accept that people not agree what you say, what you do.
And Sean, Takenta, your thoughts, please.
Aloha. I guess my first answer is I don't know the difference between free speech. Maybe it's intention-based. Maybe it's intention-based. Maybe it's effective that I did or did not intend. So it really is a deep and complex question, and I think we both tried to sort of touch on that. I think of it, first of all, when you talk about escalated interpersonal interaction where hate is being acted upon as basically a mental break, a mental health issue, that someone's having a break. And I'm reminded that a therapist who was talking to that person who expressed their intention to do that would have a duty to warn. They would have a duty to the community to say, this person is threatening to do that. There's actually a duty to warn mental health that may be instructive to us in terms of thinking about how do we deal with hate speech. I think for me, in the work I do, a lot of the framing is not having a voice is hate speech. I think Brenda's pointing out the basic imbalance of our society. I don't have a voice. And that's a form of hate, that's hate silence, you might say. I did not have a way to get my voice heard. And I think of actions like digital redlining, which is a sort of an esoteric idea. But some people in our community have more direct access to communicate than others. Some people can be heard, and some people can't be heard. So not being heard is, in a way, in my view, a form of hate speech. So to just put a little different nuance on it.
Thank you. Before I get to the next question, I do want to remind our audience, if you are having difficulty hearing, maybe it's okay to just say a little louder, because I know our panelists are not probably used necessarily to speaking into microphones. I'm a retired middle school teacher, and I'm really holding back from not blasting you. I don't know if you can hear me. But for our panelists, that may not be maybe a experience for them. So let them know. They want you to hear them for sure. All right. So for our second question, how does free speech affect civility, civic engagement, and civil discourse in a diverse society? And we'll start with Thomas Stratton for that question.
Yeah, I really believe that this concept of free speech is the civil society in which we live. That's the foundationary component of being able to speak up, speak among, speak to power, speak to engagement, speak to will. You can speak to all sorts of activities or thoughts or expressions, but without the ability to speak to it, we don't create the diversity in which we thrive as a society. And so that's a foundation requirement for me when it comes to our civil engagement. And past that, the training and or the education, the enforcement, the leadership, the cheerleading, the challenging, to continue those conversations no matter how large or small or effective they are. Someone is either speaking because they need something, someone is speaking because they're sharing a thought of clarity, or someone's just speaking because they need help. And it comes in all those forms. And so ultimately you can get so much from being able to speak But if you don't have a seat at the table, again, there's another form of, mind-blowing moment for me today, is that it totally represents how we engage as a civil society with that digital red line. And as someone that works and utilizes social functions of media, it's not my personal forum to speak about who I am. Just a little funny tagline out there for anybody that does follow what we do. In the social realm, I like to express myself by getting to know people that I'm sitting next to. And that's how I like to engage, and I think that that's a key part, is physically being able to do that in some form.
All right, thank you. Our next response will be from Brenda Perez.
Wow, how it affects tremendously. I think in the area of sharing ideas, on holding the dialogue, or on holding the space for those speeches, they are a great opportunity to also restore some of that humanity, some of that inequity. I believe that the free speech as a cornerstone of so many principal values, institutions even, should be really put into consideration for further studies, for further analysis, because it is still for me, I don't know, sometimes a shock how words like freedom or justice can mean so different for so many people, can mean opposite values. And so it affected for me that there is not a base, a common ground to establish that civility, that free speech. I put in my notes that I really stressing the point where civility is holding some spheres and maybe not all the time for the same people. I'm gonna try to develop this thought very quickly. I think civility and that engagement needs to be kept everywhere, every time, and it needs to be a purpose. It doesn't mean that we can be civil in this forum, in this panel, and then in our private space we lost that civility or that engagement. Or maybe between the relationships at work, we lose that side. So how does free speech affect all of this principle is by keeping us in a horizon of how should we keep this engagement in a positive way. I think also, just ending my comment, we need to start speaking in plural. It is because the free speech becomes so individualist and so torn into these values of that lacking community that it ended being hate speeches too. So let's start talking and remembering how to come talk in these codes of community and in plural with other senses.
Thank you. Sean McLaughlin, your thoughts, please.
I have a lot of really good things to say about free speech, and I'm a fan of free speech. And I have to say, I hope we have it someday. I think if you look at the marketplace of ideas, if you look at the platforms that we use, if you look at how they've been designed to monetize to the owners of those platforms in a way that biases against civil speech, in a way that monetizes sort of hateful actions, generate more engagement and therefore more revenue to the owner of the platform, we're looking at a dynamic that is very self-destructive in terms of the way they communicate, the amplification of hate speech over love speech. Is really a shocking dynamic, a transformational one that we've seen from the time when if you were in this space 20 years ago, you could have met and talked to the owner of every television station that operated here. And today, that's not the case. They're not here. The owners don't live here. They have no connection to this place. So how do we get a voice? How do we understand each other? Through that filter. So that's the local broadcast market, then you have the print market, then you have the online algorithms that are really designed to amplify because angst
keeps me clicking, it makes me not leave the screen.
And to me, that I guess maybe I'm jumping to a future question, but that's the dynamic that really concerns me right now. Is how do we just talk to each other without going through an algorithm that's trying to monetize that, and the humanization that happens through that process. I think is what we're experiencing. I'll make a couple later. I'll bring up the mental health issues, the infodemic, misinformation around public health. There's lots of other related dynamics that come from that.
Thank you. Betty Chin?
Question.
Oh, I sure can. The question was, how does free speech affect civility, civic engagement, and civil discourse in a diverse society? And then that's, audience here, welcome. The panelists are familiar with the questions that I'm going to ask, but you guys aren't, so feel free to ask to have me repeat. No problem whatsoever. Okay, so in response to that same question, Betty Chin.
Well, hate speech is great, but sometimes it may be illegal when they say what they do, but they stand the sidewalk, right in front of the doorway, yelling, screaming, and harassment, and maybe they're illegal, but affect me a lot. And then physical, psychological affect me, and then call the cop said it's illegal to do that in the sidewalk. But in other way, we cannot in and out of business, people cannot come in. I think this is a safety affect us a lot, and medical. Actually, we have so many people have medical need help because that. Yeah.
All right. Barbara, your thoughts, please.
Thank you. I'm a rabbi. I am a storyteller. I'd like to tell a story that relates to this question. I'm going to take you back 2,000 years. City of Jerusalem, under siege by the Romans, who were occupying the whole country. Actually very relevant to what we're dealing with today. In Jerusalem, there were two factions. One, it was called the Zealots. They wanted to go to war with the Romans. Somehow they believed that with God on our side, how could we possibly fail? The other faction were the rabbis, who wanted to talk to the Romans, who wanted to somehow see, is there some way that by talking with these people who seem to be so totally different from us, maybe we can work out some way that we can all survive and live in peace. Well, the Zealots controlled the streets. They locked the gates, wouldn't let anybody out, and kept relying on this thing that they thought was God would protect them and save them. I think we all know how that story ended. It didn't end well for any of the Jews there. The Romans came in, ultimately destroyed the temple, destroyed most of Jerusalem, and destroyed most of the Jews who were living there. What do we learn from that? When there's an opportunity for dialogue, even with the people who you consider to be your enemies, if you don't take that opportunity, you're crazy. So that's, to me, that story addresses this question: how does free speech affect civility, civil engagement, and civil discourse in a diverse society? And this is exactly what we're facing today. Thank you for the question.
Cheryl, your thoughts, please.
I'm going to answer this question a little differently. I've already started my list of things that my friend Brenda says that I need to sit with. That's how it is when I'm in her company. One of the things she spoke about was speaking in plural, we, instead of I. One of the things I do to help keep myself right is I tend to refer to people as friend. I used to say sister and brother until I had a friend explain how that can be limiting, so I'm like, okay, I'll just do friend now. And I do it intentionally to keep myself away. My background in education is in early intervention, so I have the honor of being dropped into families that I would not have known in any other context in my day-to-day life. And my job was to bring the team with them and bring my piece into their family to help the parents teach their little ones and their little ones to thrive. And those first home visits, I always listened. Because no one wants someone coming to the house telling them how it's going to be. Because I don't want to hear from you. That's disrespectful. So I try to listen. I try to join. So speaking with the we. I try to find those places of connection. And when I can't, and when I become dysregulated, which I have recently learned, I'm 58, I recently learned how poorly we adults regulate ourselves. And it causes a lot of problems. One of the things I do when I get dysregulated and I'm starting to think that you're the problem, is for my mind that brings me back and resets me, is I remember that you're somebody's child. I usually swear in my head, because I have to act better, and I have to try harder, and it resets me, and then I try again. And sometimes I have to leave. Sometimes it's like, I can't manage this, I'm not gonna bring anything helpful into this space, so I need to leave now. But I think what you said, Brenda, about speaking in the we is really important. The other thing I want to say is how important it is when to stand with people. And sometimes that is next to, and sometimes it's behind, and sometimes it's in front. When all of my privilege is all up and present, and I'm with community that is being targeted, that's my opportunity. So I bring my 208 pounds to the place, and I put it where it needs to be, and I look people in the eyes so that my friends can do what they need to do. So I think that's another piece of this, is to find places where we can recognize our privilege and power, number one, which is a thing, and then use it so that even if I'm good and my people are good, my house is good, I know I've got neighbors that aren't good. How can I support them? The way they want to be supported, not the way I think they need to be supported.
Thank you. I want to interject here. I'm so refreshed to see all our panelists interacting with one another. As somebody who is used to doing candidate forums, which is a totally different thing. So incredibly lovely for me to see the conversation that is happening. So thank you, panelists. I just love that. All right. Our next question is, how can people make amends for hate speech? And can you give specific examples? And we'll start with Brenda Perez.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
How do people make amends when hate speech is being said? When by hate speech is humanizing someone or some groups? I believe I hear some advices, and some people told me, well, a public apology, right? I think for me, the most important amendment would be to open the dialogue, to really, to take the bridge, to take the chance to talk to that group of people that is delivering the hate speech. Being able to look each other, to meet in the way, to meet with harmony, to just find out what's happening to each other. I think that for me, my opinion, that should be, or that's my goal. There is so many hate crimes happening in Sanctuary Garden, and I wish I could talk for a minute with the group of people or the people that is doing it, just to really find the understanding of each other, just to really see, look, there is one that we have in common, and the difference that we can hold. That's for me, that's I think the message I read with the
Thank you. Betty, Martin, your thoughts, please?
Well, when my kid went to school, at Lafayette School, that's how I started to feel that homeless kid. When his classmate was leaving the car at Montgomery Ward parking lot like a Target. Because that happened, and then we bought a house. Just a start before we moved in, we paint over the whole house. Somebody come over and write down regular basis. We write on every single side of the wall. And then even my kid could go go out their yard, or they throw the garbage, firework, and leave all kind of garbage to my house. And every time talk to them, they say, oh, we didn't do it. And then, so that kind of, and I always tell me, say, why don't you go back where you belong? And I walk out of school, I can eat to it. One time, I asked the janitor, can you fill the hole? Because I do a lot of physical education. He said, I'm not going to do that for Chinese. Yes. And then, also, because I think the homeless more and more, I found out a lot of family and went in a target area. And then the cop found out I do that. And then one time, one cop put a hand on the gun and scared me to death. And then also, I'm not allowed to go to Old Town 2nd and 3rd and 4th Street. I'm not allowed to go there. I didn't go there for many, many years until 2009. And when Maria's driver come to visit me, and they say, let's walk through the towns, walk through the street, see what they can do. And then that's another visit when I started to eviction from the Humboldt Marsh. And then we set up the cinema content and shelter for the people. And then so angry. I had so many lawsuits against me. I had 5, 6 lawsuits against me. They go everywhere they can go, protest, and then one against me, and then I get shot by BB gun. And then I get through the rocks, eggs, tomato, and one time one man is just stopped the car and said, Betty, I want to talk to you. I say, okay. And then I go up to the gate and spit on my face. Yes. You see how much anger is there. And then much later, and not during the COVID, I had heard people protest outside the sidewalk and tell me, why don't you go back where you belong? You bring all the COVID to the United States. Very bad. And then they started throwing stuff at me and the windows, and yelling, screaming, and then I tell them I'm American. I'm a citizen here. And then they just say, get out of here, bring your wives back to China. And then, and also during the COVID time, I find out probably over 100 Hispanics, non-documented people live in the Humboldt County. So I had to go buy some Hispanic food for them to eat. They had no benefit, nothing. And the COVID stopped anything. So I had one professor, and Hispanic professor, and a nurse help me package them and deliver to all these people. And then they had a slide and yell at me, say, "Are you bringing these people here from Texas?" And it's tough time. Face the COVID already. And then they still there, and then always, even once in a while, I still have people tell me, "You don't belong here. Get out of here." Still has something like that. I love Humboldt County. The people really good to me and very support me. But I still have little tiny group of people there. I'm not gonna let them bother me. I have peace. I have all the community people, church and non-church, anybody here to support me. And doesn't mean they can give me money to support me. They stand up for me and believe what I'm doing. And I'm not gonna fight with anybody. I'm not gonna debate with anybody. I use my accent. I still do what I'm doing. That's my accent. So they find an answer from me, and let them find an answer. I don't have to depend on myself or anything. So accents are more important and more effective people, and even how bad they are. And I tell them I'm a part of the community here. And then this is how our work is so beautiful, because we have all different types of people in this country. That's what I believe in. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Sharon Lane, your thoughts, please?
This is about making amends, yes?
Yeah, do you want me to, it was, how can people make amends for hate speech, and can you give specific examples?
Taking action. Taking action. And that can be kind of what I was saying before. It's like go stand with, in front or behind someone that needs it. Use your privilege to help someone else who is being targeted. Yeah, I think it needs to be action. I focus much less on people's intention or what I meant, or it wasn't understood. It's like I can't tell what's going on inside of you, but I can see what you're doing. So I think taking action, and there's always something that we can do. And if we're not sure, then ask your people, because your people might be able to help you. And if that doesn't work, read a book. I mean, you just keep going out until you find the information. I'm here 8 or 9 years, I have to do my math, in Humboldt County, and this is very much my home. And it's my home because of the people here. Almost everything that I do right now is different than what I did before I worked here. And it's because I have the benefit of being in this community and putting myself in circles of people and just listening, and then asking what I can do, and then just showing up and kind of wandering around. And, this isn't my beauty. I like high desert beauty. I like more sun. However, the people here and the things that I've learned and the ways that I have grown and the opportunities that I've had here have made this home. So even though I haven't been here long, this is home, and we can all learn and take action to help support one another. And it can be little bits and it can be big bits. It's just the actual doing of it that's the most important part.
Rabbi Rothberg, your thoughts, please?
Now, I want to pick up on what Sharon just said about action. This story only goes back about 40 years. I was serving as president of a shul, a congregation in Western Massachusetts, and it was graffitized one night. Usual swastikas and all those kinds of things. So I had congregants calling me up saying, "Don't let this guy get away." Police found who it was, came, brought him to us, and the rabbi and I sat together, and I said to him, "Well, what do you want to do?" And the rabbi said, "I want to invite him in here, and we're going to talk. We're going to make him a friend. We're going to talk to him, let him say whatever he wants to say to us. We can listen to him. Why did he do these things?" And we just listened. And by the time he was finished talking, he was very, very contrite and very appreciative of having been given the opportunity to say what was on his mind, rather than just throw him in the slammer for these acts of violence. And then we turned to the community and had a candlelight ceremony outside the synagogue where we sang songs, and one by one people came with cleaning cloths and everything to clear off the graffiti. And this wasn't just our Jewish community. Mayor, city council people, everybody came. So there's, to me, that's the example of taking a action and meeting it with a very positive reaction that came, the result was a very positive healing opportunity for our community that had really been torn apart by this event. And these are the same kinds of things that are happening here.
Thank you. Sean McLaughlin, your perspective, please.
Thank you very much. I'm actually pretty humbled to hear the story of the things that go on in our community that I personally have not really been exposed to or aware of. And it's very humbling for me to realize that we, within our own community, really need to do a lot better to pay attention and respond and address. And I really appreciate Sean's suggestion to just be present and act, is the beginning point. And I guess I've been fascinated by truth and reconciliation processes. Since the current one happening in the state of California around Native history. I think those processes may inform us. I know I was talking to Molly earlier about the Native Hawaiian process of Ho'oponopono, which is just another way to process disagreement and sort of hateful expression. I just happen to know because there is a fascinating national movement called Media 2070, about media reparations, about the responsibility of our media corporations who profited from hateful speech and oppressive actions be held accountable, and that there be some media reparations. That may be a little off topic for what we're actually talking about here. Thank you.
Thank you. And Tom Stratton, your thoughts, please.
I have experienced very little hate speech in my life in comparison to that of which I've been around, whether that be from race or religion or sexuality. I've seen it pervasive among the communities that I've lived in. That being where I grew up in a rural society similar to Humboldt County, but in what we would call the big R side of Oregon for a reason, and that's not the understanding that we want, right? That's not the tagline that we wanted to be perceived in our community that are aware of hate speech. But it was something that we discussed from fourth grade on in our communities because it was pervasive among those that were immigrant populations or those that were just moving for a university job in the community that were from another country. These were things that were expressed and experienced by a multitude. For me personally, though, I only really had to accept apology or engage in any sort of apologetic repose to their actions or otherwise. For me, though, it's when it comes down to it, it's about timing. You want to accept people's apologies as soon as they're willing to share them, but sometimes you're not ready for that apology either. And if there would be any sort of advice, I guess, that we're sharing on that reflection is that it's not just about how fast or how much, depending on what status or privilege you have in the community. It's really about understanding what is that action that I need to do internally because I see it in my actions and words just because of the environment in which I was raised or that of which I was unaware I needed to be more aware of. So timing and action for me, I guess.
All right, I decided we'll go ahead and do one more question before we take a break. So our break could be a little bit after 5, but I think that'll be all right. And then we'll have a stretch break. You can kind of get up and move around. So the next question is, how do media and social media intensify or mitigate hate speech? So again, intensify or mitigate. And we'll start with Betty Ponchen.
Yes, like Jewish, African American, Asian, American Indian, and homeless, and immigration.
Thank you. Sean LeBlanc, your thoughts, please.
Well, I touched on this a little bit. This is about how social media intensify or mitigate hate speech. I think we all experience this, and I think where I want to go for a minute is to talk about the U.S. Surgeon General's advisories on this, which is tying the impact of social media on youth mental health. The fact that we are heading into a suicide crisis of a whole generation that's been impacted. Not so much present in this room, actually, but if you look at that, there were several advisories came out of the U.S. Surgeon General's office. One was confronting health misinformation, talking about the direct impacts of bad information. I think some of the plays into more of the conversation here is there are patterns in this information that disproportionately impact minority communities. Communities of different languages that spread rumors in a targeted way that don't generally affect the whole population in the same way. So in that sense, I see them as very hateful impacts. And I did want to note Sharon's comment, which I think is really important about, are we looking at the result or the intention, particularly when we talk about policy, which I think probably a lot. But I think it could be really helpful for people to look at those advisories, particularly the one on social media and youth mental health. There's a whole thread of activism around holding platforms, social media platforms, accountable for their content moderation or lack thereof. There's a lot of news about bias, political bias. There's not so much news about social and economic and race-based bias that occurs through these algorithms. And I think those are all issues that we would be well advised to pay more attention to.
Thank you. Rabbi Bob Rottenberg, your thoughts, please.
I look at the owners of media as the people who are responsible for the content of the media. It is totally irresponsible, I believe, for an editor of any kind of media, publication, online, whatever, to say, oh, this is just an open forum. We're here to let people say whatever they want. That's not my idea. I was trained as a journalist. That's not my idea of journalism. My idea of journalism and of media is that somebody needs to be watching what's going on and paying attention and perhaps having a horse in the race rather than saying anything goes. I wanted to add a third category here. We have free speech on one side, we have hate speech on another side. In the middle is hostile speech. Hostile speech. So it's not hateful in the sense of being a crime, but it's hostile in the sense that it's really intended to hurt. And so much of what happens in media today is either it's the goal is to get more hits, to get more advertising, or to put a point across. And that's where I think it's so important that somebody is watching the store to make sure that what's being offered there is what really that those people who are in charge want to have offered. Thank you.
Thank you. Ranger Perez, your thoughts, please?
I think social media and media are again platforms that make a distribution of the expression of society. It's perhaps what we have to do is the content, as the panelist says, the message. It's the intention, it's also the way it's used. In a country that has used technology for moving forward so ahead in compared with other countries, we have an example which is the war technology. So much money going to technology to develop weapons, the best weapons, most advanced. Also media and social media have been there, platforms waiting for this urgent sense of education, I believe. I think too, what Rabbi says, the hostile speech is there. And it's in a way that the next generations and the current generations are being witnessing. I think media and social media, yes, can mitigate with education, with content that express hope. It's needed. But there is also another component that we need to pay attention, which is that what is giving social media now is the need for immediate reaction. I see often the platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and the goal is to have more and more and more likes to find that, that contribution and that satisfaction, so immediate. It's a way for distraction as well. It's a way for maybe not even paying attention to the public speech, to the speech that is happening in the streets. It's all behind the screen. It's in your hand, so close. And then I believe, yes, it can intensify, can mitigate, but what we need to see in the background is the message, the content, and who is developing those contents, and what is the image we want to sweet in those medias, and what is the goal by using this technology? I think that's perhaps I want to understand.
Thank you. Thomas Stratton, your thoughts, please.
Being someone, again, that uses and engages in social often, it's really clear for me to see the opportunity to reverse engineer an algorithm based upon content and the insights in which is provided on the back end as a business or a page manager. You can see details of the decisions that are being made, not necessarily by a human, but sometimes influenced by those consequential interactions. And a story comes to mind for me about what we are and how we emulate biomimicry in general, is that we send out signals 10 times more when there's something bad going on versus when there's something good going on in our breakdown of human interaction and communication. So inherently, we're always going to be the negative Nancys. We're always going to be those, sorry, I shouldn't bring people's names into this. Remember, okay, we're going to be those negative folks. See, they do it all the time, right? Is that we have to engage in a way that's thinking about how do we amplify recognizing that bias. So for us and what we're engaging in our impact in social right now is actually a part of a larger quote-unquote campaign that we're engaging in to help reverse and engage in social influence in a way that's amplifying a message of positivity and inclusion and action-based bias of solutions that are thought out with tabletop partners from engaging in all sorts of platforms. And ultimately, the social platforms make that a lot easier for us to accomplish if it's done in the appropriate fashion. So I can see it being a very negative thing inherently based upon the parameters in which it's been developed. But if properly tooled and gamified in a way that engages the public and engages folks that are using those platforms and will continue to, but with different drivers or outcomes being the basis of the formation, I think it can be a very, very much a positive thing. And we have heard those positives come from individuals, and specifically gay youth in agriculture that didn't think they had a place in agriculture because they didn't see themselves. So that's one thing that we really appreciate about it, but also the negativity.
Thank you. Sharon Lane, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna take this a little different direction, kind of building what you were saying. Yeah, social media also can really, has opened me up. I actually thought of this the other day about how many new people that I'm following, mostly younger Black people doing all kinds of amazing things that I would never have thought of or known about. And I commented to myself the other day, it's like, I feel like I'm growing because of what I'm watching on my Instagram. But it's because I cultivate it. So I get rid of the no thank yous and I bring in more of the yes please. And I wonder if, you know, some kind of peer support around how to engage in a more healthy manner might be helpful, because it's not going anywhere. And I'm tired of listening to people talk about how horrible social media is. So it's like, okay, well, let's learn how to engage in it because it's here. And there are a lot of benefits. So maybe we just need to change our relationship around it. And the other thing is, you know, when we're talking about our children and suicide, you know, our children, my day job is in the TK-12 schools. I engage with teachers, administrators, and students. And the reason our children are suffering is because we adults are not doing our jobs. We're not holding the containers well, and that's why they're struggling. They are children. Even when they're bigger than us, they're still children. So we need to do a better job, and then they will feel safer and calmer and be able to function better.
Thank you. All right, on that note, I'm going to excuse everybody before we go. We'll take a 10-minute break. That'll give you a chance to get some more cookies if there are any left. One thing I want to tell you about, you will see half sheets of paper out there that are an exit survey. We would really, really appreciate this. It's being shown in the background. I'll if you have some golf pencils. If you don't have a pencil ready to use, you don't have to do it right now, but if you want to take one and have it at your table, and before today's forum is over, we would love some feedback. Also back there, you'll see on some clipboards some sign-up sheets if you'd like to be contacted about future events. The exit surveys are anonymous, so we encourage you to respond. If you are interested in us getting a hold of you, we do have a non-anonymous forms on the clipboard. So thank you, panelists. This is awesome. You guys deserve to get stretch your legs, and so do you. Wonderful audience. All right, we're going to call this forum back to order, please. All right. And it is my goal, we will do our very best to end right at 6. I know everybody has much to do. I don't know if the weather is still beautiful out there. I hope it is. Yeah, I haven't. So, all right. Are we all there? Is everybody there? Okay, great. Thank you. All right, for our next question, it's kind of a long one. I'm kind of combining things, panelists. So it's sort of a two-parter. So we'll start. And Rabbi Bob Rottenberg, we're going to start with you, just so you know. So, some of you have already shared that you have been a target of or have witnessed hate speech or behavior. If you have not yet shared your experience of being a target, please feel free to do so at this time. And for all of you, given that, was there something that you did that helped you respond effectively or something that helped you to heal? And this is both related to being a target or being witness to somebody else being targeted. So sort of a two-parter. It's opportunity to share more, and then what helped you to respond effectively and to heal. And yeah, we'll give you a little bit more time on this. So go for it. Go for it, Rabbi Bob Rottenberg.
Well, I have to say, I'm gonna pass on that one because I'm not aware of ever having been directly, having had hate speech directed directly at me. And I think that maybe I'm living in a bubble, which I appreciate. The stories that I've told of witnessing, and I mean the thing that happened at the synagogue in Western Massachusetts is an example of this. But it wasn't people coming at me and saying you blah 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 blah. So I feel I must say I feel very blessed in that sense. I would take a moment to say that if it were to happen to me, what I would hope for would be to have the presence of mind to take a deep breath and to let that person just go on until they were finished. And then see if there was something else they needed to say. And then say, thank you for sharing. And move on. That's going to be it for me.
Okay, thank you. Sharon Blank, your thoughts, please?
Two things come to mind. One was kind of the first one. The first time I felt targeted as a Jewish person was our synagogue in Reno was firebombed. And it was at a time when I was I worked at the Jewish preschool and both of our children were there. And Jeffrey's probably on the board at the religious school doing all the things because that's who he is. And we had a conversation about what we were going to do. And we decided that we weren't going to let other people dictate what we were going to do. And so we stayed and we helped develop, more safety stuff in this space. And I remember our conversation, and it was another one of those moments I was really proud of my family because we also completely understood families that pulled away, took their kids and just didn't anymore. And it's like, but all of that is valid. I think being Black really prepared me for being Jewish. Because, you see me coming, so that's kind of that. But I reveal that I'm Jewish, and then things go from there. But yeah, and then the other thing was when I was president of the Eureka NAACP, one of the things was that when horrible things happen in this region, I got contacted. And what I noticed, and I mean horrible things, like finding out there's white supremacist groups doing certain initiations, and this is what it looks like, and it's kind of coming your direction, and, and one of the things I noticed for myself was how my fear in wanting to go get my boys and put them in a room and keep them safe, and then I'd get really angry, and then I'd know what to do. And that cycle got faster. It took less time as these things happened. And, it's one of the blessings I was talking about before about being here and learning the things I've learned. So now I move through it really fast because these horrible things continue to happen. And I also am really good at using, unlike my friend Bob, who will just listen to people, I'm really good at using my anger as fuel. I don't go after folks that I'm angry, but it lights up the next part, is what I've noticed. And I'm grateful. It works for me. And I come up with great solutions, and then I talk to people, and then I do the thing. And I also put myself in a lot of spaces with other people and their experiences, and it helps me have more understanding because I haven't been called that name, I haven't been followed, I haven't been, scared of my neighbors, but I know people who have been. And so it helps inform me when I'm in spaces, I can move forward with that information and hopefully do something, share that story, insert it, say, hey, you need to talk to. I mean, that was one of the things that happened with me being asked to be on this panel. I'm like, well, how about you invite this person, and what about this? And, that's part of how I use my privilege and power, is to make sure other voices are included in these kind of conversations.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you. Thomas Stratton, your thoughts, please.
You just repeat the question again
You
for me?
can. I certainly can. So some of you have already shared that you have been a target of or have witnessed hate speech or behavior. If you have not yet shared your experience of being a target or witnessing such behavior, please feel free to do so now. And then for all panelists, in addition, second part is, was there something you did that helped you respond effectively or something that helped you to heal from either your experience or what you witnessed?
I'll focus on the second part of that, is that I know listening is so important, and that's the part that I had to learn how to do, very intensively listening, and sometimes that's meeting people where they are, unfortunately. Some of the training that I've gone through in conversational collaboration and inner working committee democratically, in the form of corporatized business or in the form of social engineering and organizing for all sorts of purposes, is that you have to meet people where they are with a shared pool of understanding, and oftentimes that can be reflected in their actions or in their presence. And so if that is bringing your voice up first and then slowly bringing it back down to a conversational point to which engage, create a hook, so that way you're at least being listened to, is like one example of many techniques that you can utilize. And I always find myself doing that, and it typically ends in a hug, which that moment of embrace, if you feel safe enough. Sometimes I haven't felt that, other times I have. Whether the person's belligerent in some form of intoxication or just belligerent in their personality, there's something there that's deeper seated that you don't necessarily have to get to the bottom of in that topic or that moment, but the recognizing whether people run out of something to say and they find that solution themselves, they can find their own intrinsic problem, and embracing them with that recognition or without often is a really great form of expressing dopamine, which is really important.
Thank you. Sean McLaughlin, your response, please.
Aloha. I think if you think about it, I'm sure we have all experienced in some way people expressing hateful thoughts or actions or words to us. And in that sense, again, I'm sort of aware that I have had very little of that in my life. I've been very fortunate. And of course, living in Hawaii as a white person, you get to experience what it's like to be a minority, maybe for the first time. And a lot of people react to that in different ways. I guess going to the second part about, okay, how do you constructively, recover or address those things? I think every time I've witnessed or experienced something, it really, really helps to talk to other people and say, did I hear that right? I mean, one of the things that I do in my head all the time is I will take an insult and hear it as a compliment. And gee, I wasn't exposed to any hateful thought. I was, but I filtered that. So it can be super helpful just to check with trusted other people to say, did I hear that right? Was that really what they meant to say? So I think maybe there's something about the power of sharing the experience and acknowledging the reality that people are capable of doing hateful things and expressing truly hateful thoughts. And for somebody who practices filtering and denying that, when I get close to it, I rely on others to help me process and understand that.
Thank you. Brenda Perez, your thoughts, please.
Hola. So for talking about hate, my own experience, I may need more than 3 minutes, and I'm not going to take...
You go ahead.
Oh. No, you see, my experience or the experience that my community lives in Humboldt County as immigrants is similar, but it's also a good example of that despite every hate action, hate expression against us, we thrive, we prosper. And the example of that is that there is also people that lift us up. So I'm gonna focus on that. One strategy that is effective so far, not only for me and my own personal experience, but for my community, is the radio in Spanish. It's been such a healing process to have mics access and have my guests coming to speak in their own languages. And being holding that space since back in 2017 until now, with my allies of every station, has been just most of the very effective way. Another one is always to have these public statements where I can meet my friends in person that are taking actions. An example also is to be reminded that in places that can be hostile, there is also so many light. And of course, receiving those notes, the postcards, the comments, the good positive energy and feedback for the work we do at Centro del Pueblo, that's priceless. So I think, yes, there is a lot of hate crimes. We are called illegal people, aliens. We are called so many things. Rabbi says the usual, right? I rather say let's don't get it usual. Let's don't get it normalized. Every time we hear that and you hear that, express your estrangement, express your disagreement if you feel like. Let's step up in front and in the side of an immigrant and appreciate that experience as part of humanity. How many times we're going to say immigration and being migrants is such an example of how humanity has been developing, how it's been walking around the world, how it's been shaping environments. But once we cross this border, it becomes a negative word, an attack that is sometimes loud, heavy in the shoulders, and it would be unbearable to lift without all of your support. All of these people sitting in this table is great inspiration. It's been supporting us. It's been letting us know we belong. And not only we belong as a group of people that is extremely hardworking, we belong for our talents, for our arts, for our culture, and because we are the same and we are pursuing the same goals. We want this place to be a better place. We want to create an impact. And that's what brings us together. So to every one of these panelists, including my new friend here, I want to thank them because thanks to them, I create strategies that are effective to keep going. The tragedies, my friends, those are so familiar, even in the TV, seeing children in prison, seeing families separated in the border, seeing things that at this point, if that doesn't create transformation in your hearts, it's hard for me to bring a personal experience that good. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. And Betty Kwanchin, your thoughts, please.
Like I tell you before, I had so many people file lawsuit against me. So I still doing what I'm doing. I screw up, I still doing. I believe what I'm doing. So when I open up the village for the Pago Marsh people, probably 2 weeks later, I know had 5 people, business together, file lawsuit against me. I said, what do you want from me? I had T-shirt, I had nothing. But they say they can get your house. I said, the house in my husband and my name, you only get half a house. You cannot get my whole house. But they said, wait and see. And then, so the main character is an older gentleman. After we opened up the village, and then he came to the center. And I do not know, I let him in, or I say something, I scare him, actually. And he said, Betty, can we talk? I said, okay, and then come in. I don't want to go in office or anywhere. I want to open space in the day center. And then if something happened, I had some witness there, So anyway, and he said, I'm going to tell you this. I dropped my lawsuit. I just come from the lawyer office. This is the money, refund money from a lawyer. I'm going to donate it to you. Okay, my house is safe now. I can have the place to live. So, and the next phase that really, really on my heart is It's kind of where things happen. So the cop kind of mean to me in that time, but we are neighbor right now to each other. So 2 years in a row, when I set up for them, the emergency shelter, always the chief coming to me, neighbor, do you need help? And then I said, well, I got open a cart for the people come in. I said, I don't know how to do it. And then he said, I don't know either, let's try. So we set up all the cart for the people come in. But made the things for me to see was, last 3 years now, the police department come over at a Christmas holiday, help me box up 400 dinner to deliver to the people in the house. They necessary is a homeless, the people in the house and elderly, they need food to eat. And that made me think about it. You know what? That's the power of the action. You don't have to fight with them and debate anything. The boy shoot me in a BB gun, and then he came, probably a year later, he came in and said, Miss Betty, I want to talk to you. I said, okay, and I knew the face, and must be older now. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, what I did to you, I'm really lucky, I put something to open up the BB or whatever, and then what I can do for you. But in that moment, I learned the forgiveness. I tell them, I forget everybody. They had the reason what they're doing, maybe not in the same agreement in here. So he be my volunteer, and he helped out for the children programming. Be a forgiveness really helped myself to healing. I had to find peace in my heart doing this kind of work. If you don't have peace on you, you cannot work. The people need you, and they need somebody have peaceful to help them. If I angry, upset, and anything, they wouldn't help them, and I will not help myself too. And I think together, we had a good conversation, talk about, understand each other. Like the first old man and come here donate the money to me, and he said, you know what? I don't believe what you're doing, Betty. I said, I don't want anybody to believe what I'm doing, but this comes from my heart. Because I was suffer, hungry, live on the street. My passion built in that time. That's my passion. I'm not doing this against you and then ruin your business. I understand that. So we had a long conversation. Once in a while, we still had a phone call. And the second one, not long ago, filed a lawsuit against me and then say, you ban all these homeless people in here, and then shame on you. And then I say, well, that's your opinion, you know? And then before Thanksgiving, and he donated $10,000 to me. Action, that's it. But I find peace on myself, and thank you.
Excellent, thank you. I think, given the time right now, that we're going to make this our final question. And so the final question is, for the panelists, coming out of this forum, what are your hopes for our community moving forward? So we will start with that final question with Sharon Blank.
I hope that this is the first of a series of these panels that we have. When it was brought to me what these two organizations wanted to do, I remember going, this is a terrible idea. Like, this is not going to work. This is going to go sideways. And it has been absolutely wonderful. It's been wonderful being with these folks. You all have been wonderful, and I think creating this kind of space on a regular basis with different voices up here is actually just what we need. So I'm hoping that the two organizations continue to do this.
Thank you. Rabbi Bob Rottenberg, your response, please.
Well, I agree with that, of course. Anything that allows us to listen to each other, which means allows us to be able to say our piece without being judged for it, without a response. To just say your piece, say, thank you for listening, and then pass it on to the next person. And of course, what that also requires is, after you've spoken, to listen to what the next person has to say, and the next person and the next person, that the wisdom is always in the center of the room, and we're all sitting on the outside of a circle. So that's, I'm really glad that you put this together, and I hope that the next time you do this, you might get more of a diverse set of people who are coming with very different ideas so that we can listen to each other. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Brenda Perez, your ideas, please.
My hope is being expressed alongside the forum with keywords like reconciliation, with keywords like compassion, like healing. I believe that past generations and current generations are holding some trauma. And I believe that it's our duty to acknowledge that and try to heal for the next generations. We have to do something. It's in our hands. Let's create more love speech, more hopeful speech, more education content. Let's talk to each other. Let's be in good relationships to each other. My hopes is to acknowledge the immense gift of having the word, the dialogue as a bridge. In so many traditions, having this gift, the word, the expression, it's so valuable, and I think we are not acknowledging enough. It's called the flower of word, when somebody can communicate to each other. For me, being in this country, speaking English, and being able to communicate in this forum today among people, that is immensely a source of inspiration for me. It's priceless, and I wish we can work all together. We can engage each other with this civility pact. It's more like an harmonious pact, a harmony that we need to find to cross together. To the next generations, we need to leave them something so outstanding, the size of this nature we love here. We need to honor this opportunity and to honor the words we share to each other. That's my hope.
Thank you. Thomas Stratton, your thoughts, please.
I hope that we can real quickly do an activity together, because it's my hope that we collaborate more in all sorts of facets. And something that I'm going to borrow from my conversation with Molly just quickly in between is that recognition of each facet of a gem is what our expression or understanding is, either through religion or groups or nonprofits, business. You kind of name all of those ways in which we gather. Those are individual little bright spots that sometimes have blemishes that need to be buffed out. And whether that's a religious form or in the meditation of just being one in oneself and having inner peace, as Betty was expressing, and really in that form of all of us together expressing that. And for this moment, I'm going to ask that we do something and simply just closing our eyes, and I'm going to ask you to guide yourselves, is to be able to express what we learned here today in our lives, professionally and personally. There's one thing you can focus on. You can see it right now. You've identified them, you've written them down, you've taken note. Whatever that is for you individually is what's going to create that next step in change. And we can do this. Us. We can do this. It just takes concerted effort. You know what that is, you've identified it, and we're all challenging each other and holding each other accountable to be able to move that next step, and the next step, and the next step, and the next step. You can open your eyes. That's to your own self and to anybody you want to share it with. But I get challenged by that on the daily by my 5-year-old son. And it's really fascinating to see how we, with the time on this earth, start to whittle down out possibilities versus building out possibilities. I hope that we can all take that stance today when we go forward.
Thank you. Betty Kwan Chin, your thoughts?
I hope people willing to learn, to listen, and learning. It's not a debate. Nobody won, nobody lose. For each person, find a peace within themselves. And peace is important in your heart.
Thank you. And Sean Taketa McLaughlin, your thoughts, please.
There's a lot to do. So I guess I hope that we all find a way to engage as effectively as we can. In particular, I hope you will lend your voice and share your voice on local access channels and on the radio for free. I hope you will lend your support to the League of Women Voters for this kind of effort. It does not happen by itself. I hope you will let the Board of Supervisors know how important the Humboldt County Human Rights Commission is to our community, to keep our community, the quality of life, good. I have to give one quick little shout out because Brenda is working right now with us on a project to do a community journalism training project. And I think it's a really good example of the kind of action that people can take to put yourself out in front of the messaging, in front of the speech, and really bring some transparency and accountability in your own neighborhood. I guess I hope next time some lunatic is ranting at Betty from the sidewalk in front of her office that I can show up and help, or that the community can figure out how that doesn't keep happening. And the list goes on. But really, I thank everyone here. I learned so much, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. So I personally am so impressed and inspired by all that I've learned and heard from our presenters today. I want to thank all of you for being such an outstanding audience and taking time out of your day to come here and learn together and listen and think and visualize what we can be. I just think it's inspiring and it's wonderful. So that, as I've mentioned earlier, the Human Rights Commission is hoping to facilitate follow-up events, and we got some really good ideas from you guys just now, just saying, on this topic in the future in our community. So if you haven't done so already, if you can put your feedback onto those little half slips of paper and hand them to one of the Human Rights, the hand is being raised. We appreciate your feedback. I do want to thank Humboldt Mediation Services for tabling at this event. And finally, let's please give a warm round of applause to our 6 panelists for their willingness to participate.